doesn't pay us, then someone's going to have to do something about it.
And Secretary of State Marco Rubio just said at a NATO gathering in Sweden, the U.S. could act alone, but some of our allies need that Strait of Hormuz shipping even more.
So I made that point today. I don't know if that would be a NATO mission necessarily, but it would certainly be NATO countries that can contribute to it.
President Trump's been very critical of NATO allies not helping. Rubio also said this morning there is a bit of progress in talks, but Fox's Jackie Heinrich reports from the White House.
A member of Iran's parliament reportedly told state media this morning that Tehran could act first to break the ceasefire if it believed the U.S. was preparing to attack. President Trump is not giving away any clues about his next move after saying earlier this week he was willing to wait a couple of days for Iran's response and also that he was right on the borderline of potentially resuming military action.
The president wrote on Truth Social, new stock market record, and the Dow has hit a new all-time trading high. It's gaining more than 350 points. The president also wrote on Truth Social, thank goodness Stephen Colbert is finally gone, calling him a total jerk with no talent, no ratings, posting that after the last show for the very outspoken Trump critic last night.
We were here to feel the news with you, and I don't know about you, but I sure have felt it.
Colbert supporters believe he was canceled for political reasons. CBS says it was a financial decision. Racing fans and drivers in disbelief at Kyle Busch's sudden death, days after his 234th victory, the most in NASCAR history.
We do know he was hospitalized earlier in the week for a severe illness, and several people familiar with the situation telling the AP Busch was testing in the Chevrolet racing simulator Wednesday when he became unresponsive and was transported to the hospital. Again, still do not know how the NASCAR legend died.
Madison Scarpino, Busch was only 41. America's listening to Fox News.
Life is full of challenges, but you don't have to face them alone. At InTouch.org, you'll find powerful sermons from Dr. Charles Stanley, daily devotionals, and resources designed to strengthen your faith and bring hope into everyday life. Whether you're searching for encouragement, biblical wisdom, or practical guidance, InTouch.org is here to help you grow closer to God. Discover truth that speaks to your heart. Visit InTouch.org today. That's InTouch.org. Thanks.
A small business affirmation from Progressive. Plumbers, today will be a good day. You will be profitable. Your clients will be nice. No one will stand over you and tell you how to fix the thing they actually hired you to fix. You will also feel at peace after switching to Progressive, America's #1 commercial auto insurer. See if you can save in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, #1 commercial auto insurer from the NAIC's 2024 National Premium Data.
The station Delaware and Maryland turns to for local news. Here is another Delmarva News Update here on 92.7 WGMD, WGMD.com, and the WGMD app.
Worcester County Public Schools Board of Education has announced several school leadership appointments and transfers during Thursday's meeting. All of the changes taking effect July 1st. The moves include new and returning assistant principals, as well as administrative transfers across multiple schools in the district. As officials say, the changes are aimed at strengthening school leadership and supporting students, staff, and school communities ahead of the new academic year. We have a traffic alert for you today in the Ellendale area. South Old State Road between East Robbins Road and Beach Highway will close from Tuesday, May 26th through Friday, May 29th. For storm drain work, patching, and paving, motorists wanting to travel south on South Old State Road will turn right onto Main Street and then turn left onto DuPont Boulevard, then turn left onto East Robbins Road, returning to South Old State Road. And drivers wanting to travel north on South Old State Road will turn left onto East Robbins Road, then turn right onto DuPont Boulevard, right onto Main Street, and return to South Old State Road. A Worcester County Sheriff's Office investigation that began with the seizure of 57 dogs and 9 cats from a Snow Hill home in June of last year has now resulted in a conviction. Authorities said the animals were found in overcrowded and unsanitary conditions, and many suffered from serious medical complications. On May 21st, Patricia Gatalita was found guilty of theft, scheme, and multiple animal cruelty charges. She has since been sentenced to 10 years in state prison. All but 3.5 years were suspended by the judge. Investigators say the woman bought and sold numerous dogs using multiple aliases and fraudulent methods. For these and other stories, visit talkofdelmarva.com. I'm Jared Zarello.
Vernon Powell is your local source for over 200 brands of footwear, apparel, and accessories. From Molokai sandals to Hoka running shoes, VP has the footwear to fit your lifestyle. Hit the gym or the boat in performance apparel from Lululemon and Marshwear. And shop VP accessories for all your favorites, like Bog bags, E-Noon jewelry, and Yeti drinkware. Family owned for 90 years, visit Vernon Powell behind the mall in Salisbury on Route 1 Rehoboth, or online at vpshoes.com. Vernon Powell Shoes, apparel and more. There's a place to explore.
Listen up, Delmarva anglers. The Talk of Delmarva Fishing Report follows the 6 a.m., 10 a.m., and 4 p.m. local news and sports all throughout the week. Veteran fishing reporter, broadcaster, and local salt Eric Burnley tells us what's biting, where, and on what.
The Talk of Delmarva Fishing Report is brought to you by Complete Tree Care, licensed and insured. Request an estimate at CompleteTreeCareDE.com.
Now, it's time for the Talk of Delmarva Fishing Report, featuring Eric Burnley.
Thursday saw much cooler temperatures, but the wind stayed high, just out of a different direction. Patty at Captain Bones in Odessa said white perch, catfish, and striped bass in a variety of sizes have been caught from shore, from Augustine Beach down to Woodland Beach, and from the fishing pier located there. Bloodworms will work for the white perch and the stripers, with catfish taking cut bait or special catfish baits. Smith's Bait in Lipstick told us the black drum bite at the coral beds off of Slaughter Beach has been steady, with blue crab or clams atop baits. These are 35 to 40-pound fish. Lewis Harbor Arena said no boats ventured up Delaware Bay on Thursday. One boat did fish in the Lewis and Rehoboth Canal and caught 2 flounder on minnows. This is Eric Burnley with your Talk of Delmarva Fishing Report.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
And we're back. Your guest host, Brigadier General Blaine Holt, retired here on this Memorial Day weekend, where we're examining the intersection of the dangerous world, economics, and American liberty, somewhere in the balance. So we're right in the thick of it right now, and it's really the very ground underneath our feet, and it's colliding head on with all of these forces we've been talking about all week. We just heard from Fred Fleitz on the big global threats, and from Guy Van Treska on where geopolitics and world economics meet every single day, but offering solutions and ideas about how strategically we can turn this ship in perhaps a new historic direction. But now we're going to turn to a real treat. We're going to turn to one of the sharpest voices in the precious metals and monetary world to give us the unvarnished truth on where we actually stand. Andy Schectman of Miles Franklin is joining us. Andy, welcome to the show. You've been tracking these markets through the lens of sound money for decades, but paint the picture for us. What are the numbers, the gold and the silver flows, and the broader economic signals telling us right now, and how should American families be thinking about protecting their wealth and their future in this type of environment? Right. Mhm. Right.
Planet here in the United States have been standing for delivery for billions and billions and billions and billions and billions of dollars worth of gold and silver nonstop every single month.
Unprecedented.
Now, it's unprecedented, sir, and it is outside the realm of what is normal. To a degree, it's like 4 feet of snow in Death Valley in July. And if that were to happen, I assure you they're not opening snowmobile dealerships up and down the highway alongside Death Valley. What I'm telling you is that less than 1% of COMEX contracts my entire 36-year career ever stood for delivery. Now, we're seeing it happen at a level that is so unprecedented, as you're spot on with that term. No one's ever seen anything like it, and this is a story that is being completely and totally missed by the mainstream. Whether it be intentionally or just being inept, I'm not quite sure. But it's a very important story, and quite frankly, it should be front page news, lead story on the evening news, and lead story on 60 Minutes. Who the heck is standing for delivery in these quantities? And when you look at that, on top of the fact that for the past 7 years, the world's most well-informed traders, the central banks, have been buying gold and silver as if it was going out of style as well. So to me, it is a function of it being wealth in an environment that we have never experienced before, a macro environment that seems mathematically to be getting exponentially worse. At a time when the most well-informed and well-funded traders on the planet are showing you with their actions, less with their rhetoric, using price as a tool of misdirection to misdirect the public, and gobbling up everything that isn't nailed down across the globe. And if value was indicative of price, then my question would be why? Why are the most well-funded traders making such an inordinate effort to accumulate so much gold and silver that in all of time, nobody has ever seen anything like it, and it's not stopping? And
I think one of the things that you're talking to is so important is the consumer. If they just pick up a retail newspaper, they're going to hurt themselves if they think that that's financial advice, because we've got price manipulation, suppression, no description of paper markets versus physical markets. We have recently, and we'll talk to this when we get back from the break, because I'd love for you to sort it out for us.
Sure.
China, Turkey, dumping gold, dumping treasuries. But it's not what you think. It's not because they don't think that they'd love to have the gold and keep it. It's that they're running out of money. And I'm going to be the dumb pilot here and the armchair hobbyist economist. But I know that when we get back from the break, you'll sort that out for me at a macro level.
Yes, sir.
Better. All right, we'll be right back with Andy Schectman.
Here's a look at your Delmarva
Perfect scene
forecast.
setter, Randy. Thank you.
Rain showers
Yes, sir.
likely today. Otherwise, cloudy skies expected. Daytime highs approaching 61. Winds out of the east, 10 to 20 miles per hour. Overcast skies tonight. Chance for showers. Lows dip down to about 52. Cloudy tomorrow. Thunderstorms likely. High temperatures reach up to 63. I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center along the coast. Currently 60.
The Surf Report with Tim Ferry, getting you ready for the weekend conditions this Friday after the 8 a.m. news here on 92.7 and 98.5 WGMD, the Talk of Delmarva.
Andy Robb with your Lowe's weekend weather update. Clouds Saturday, a few showers, high in the low 70s. And cloudy, a few showers around on Sunday, high again in the low 70s. Memorial Day savings are on at Lowe's. Save $80 on a Char-Broil Performance Series 4 burner gas grill, now just $199. Plus, get up to 45% off select major appliances. Valid through 5/27 while supplies last. Selection varies by location. See associate or Lowe's.com for details.
Liberty Mutual customizes your car and home insurance. And now we're customizing this ad for your morning commute to wake you up, which could help your driving. Science says that stimulating the brain increases alertness. So here's the pop quiz. How many months have 28 days? What gets wetter as it dries? What has keys but can't open locks? If you don't want to hear the answers, turn off this Liberty Mutual ad now. 12 months, a towel, piano. Enjoy being fully alert.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Gear up for Memorial Day weekend at Baker Petroleum.
Save big with propane grill tank refills starting at only $7 this Thursday and Friday only. Bring up to 5 grill tanks to Baker Petroleum in Milton between 8 a.m. and 4:30 p.m. on Greville Hill Road for grill tank refills starting at $7 each.
Located in Milton. For details on this deal, call Baker Petroleum 302-645-7000.
Views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and not necessarily the staff,
40
management,
seconds.
ownership, advertisers, or sponsors of WGMD. A Delmarva original and one of the country's most successfully owned independent radio stations, providing news, talk, and sports to the peninsula for over 40 years. 92.7 and 98.5 WGMD. Celebrating over 40 years. 92.7 and 98.5. The Talk of Delmarva.
That's where I'm building my company.
From the Meineke Car Care Center studio, it's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
Welcome back to Your News Talk America. Hey, how would you like to be in a discussion with one of the greatest money minds out there, and someone who understands the precious metals markets and what's really happening beyond the pages of your favorite newspaper that maybe should not be your favorite? I'm going to continue now with Andy Schectman. Andy, we were seeing, we've seen price fluctuations, and we see, somebody said, oh, now silver's on its crash. We see Turkey, China dumping holdings. Can you make sense out of some of that spoofing that we're seeing in the markets?
100%, and I do believe it is spoofing. I do. I'll come back to Turkey. I want to start with China first of all. I would disagree with the statement that China has been offloading its metals. In fact, their import numbers have never, ever, ever been bigger. Let's talk about that. Excuse me. As the price got smashed in January and February, which, by the way, the most powerful bank on the planet, the Bank of International Settlements, came out and I thought took the U.S. to task in saying that the movement or the fall in gold and silver in particular, was structural, not fundamental. It was done in the first 2 weeks of January. You will typically see volatility, tremendous volatility in commodities and in equities, as ETFs that are very levered. They have 2 times, 3 times, 4 times leverage. They need to be rebalanced according to their prospectus. That happens the first 2 weeks of the year, and so it's always a tumultuous time. The fact that that happened with the CME Group, the COMEX exchange, raising margin requirements by 300% into the rebalancing, all but guaranteed a watershed event. That selling would beget selling, would beget selling, would beget selling. The margin requirements, which in order to either speculate or, in my case, hedge a 5,000 ounce position in silver, where normally I have 2 million ounces in my warehouse, I will take the opposite side on COMEX, so I'm market neutral. One goes up, one goes down. On December 1st, I needed to have $15,000 in my margin account. By January 15th, I needed to have $54,000 in my margin account. Well, the same thing would be true for a speculator buying contracts. They would have needed to post nearly $40,000 more per contract immediately, or their position gets liquidated. So the BIS said, well, this was structural. Nothing changed fundamentally. So let's talk about China. As the price was getting smashed, China imported silver at record levels, literally for 3 consecutive months. But let's talk about February and March alone. In March alone, they bought 836 tons. That's up 78% month over month and 173% above the 10-year average. Now, if you look at what they've accumulated in terms of the first 90 days, 1,626 metric tons. Now, China is the second largest producer of silver in the world. They bought 52.3 million ounces worth $4 billion the first 90 days of the year. As the price was getting slammed, it is the largest import into China in the history of recorded records. And let's talk about, by the way, they flipped from net export or importer. They are buying more silver than anybody on the planet. And when you talk about what's happened at the same time on COMEX with silver, as the price was getting slammed in February, we saw 26 million ounces delivered to COMEX. That's roughly $1.5 billion at the price we had back then. But the crazy thing about it is that in February, as the price was getting kneecapped, somebody took possession of 39 million ounces, and it left COMEX. It put them on trucks, and off it went, an armada of semi-trucks. 39 million ounces is almost 2.9 million pounds of silver. Now ask yourself this: who the heck ran logistics for $4 billion in silver, put it on trucks, did the insurance, ran the security, and where in God's green earth did it go? Why is this not front page news? I don't think. Well, let's mention gold. In March, China imported 162 tons of gold. That's the March 2024 and the third consecutive monthly increase. In Q1 2026, right, as the price was getting kneecapped, we saw 11.7 million ounces or $54 billion delivered to COMEX. Now think about that for a second. $54 billion worth of gold was delivered, the largest ever. Excuse me, I apologize for that. I'm wrong with that one. That's China. China, $54 billion. In February, the United States, $5.2 billion in February. 7.65 million ounces, the largest delivered in a single month. Record. So, for context, period 2015 to 2019, the United States on COMEX averaged only 130 tons per year. In February, somebody imported delivery for 238 tons, a 35.2 ever.
Andy, I'm losing your signal
this
here.
This is happening on top of 9 straight years of central banks purchasing. Now, you mentioned Turkey. Turkey is experiencing hyperinflation. It did sell a large amount of it gold in 2026 to raise dollar liquidity. There's no question about that, to defend or support their lira. However, what the media doesn't report is they've literally blown through all of their treasuries. They don't mention that. They'll tell you that they sold their gold, but they have been rebuilding their position. In fact, I just read on the import-export numbers that they increased their gold reserves over the last couple of weeks by 36.4 tons to around 730 tons total as of the time of this discussion. So they are buying it back. They did need to sell some to defend the lira, but wherever it's being reported that China is selling gold and silver, I would argue it is absolutely false, fake news, misinformation. Mm-hmm. They have been buying more gold and silver than at any time in history right now.
Okay, so with price suppression and manipulation, paper markets versus physical markets, what you're providing is signal through noise. that the real signal is that the world is gobbling up metals as fast as it possibly can ingest them. People are actually, or countries are actually dumping treasuries in favor of hard assets. Historically, when we look at economic history, this points to usually some sort of historic event that is going to befall the world. As the Great Depression got started, we recall FDR rounding up as much gold out of our hands as he possibly could. World War II then ensued, but right now, and where I'd like you to go with me is, are we looking at a historic event that looks like a lot like a major kinetic war, or a depression, or are we about to hook on over to a completely different monetary system? And all three of those are heavy turbulence for the little guy, heavy turbulence for the one who just wants to make their mortgage payment at the end of the month. What do you make out of the noise that we're seeing, and what the metals are telling you?
You know, you're a smart man. You ask the right questions. And I suppose that's why you reached the level of rank that you did in the military. Those are the right questions. And I would simply say to you, let's use The Art of War, the book of 5th century military strategist Sun Tzu, The Art of War. Misdirection is pervasive. It's everywhere. And this is all about misdirection. Misdirect with price to accumulate the physical, because indeed we are on the cusp, in my mind, of a new monetary system. We are indeed on the cusp of a new monetary system. And the reasons are many, but I would think the catalyst goes back to the United States, who, and again, I am not making any comment whatsoever about either of these wars, but the way that the other side, the global South, looks at the United States, I would argue is probably not the way that someone like me or you or the people listening to the show looks at the United States, right? And especially someone like you who spent your life defending the country, and God bless you for doing it. I would simply say this, that they look at us and say, well, let me get this straight. You came into Iraq 23 years ago. You're still there to a degree, occupying however you're doing it. You never found the weapons you were looking for. And the carnage that ensued as a result of it would make us say, well, wait a second. Why are you allowed to do that and still be there? But whatever's happening in Russia, which Russia feels they need to do, they're kicked out of SWIFT, and you steal $4 billion worth of their treasuries and give it in the form of weapons to the Ukraine, largely. Now, I am not making any statement myself personally. I'm trying to look at this pragmatically from both sides. When you cross that Rubicon of taking another country's treasuries as the world reserve currency, passing judgment as who can defend their own self-interest and who can't, you become judge, jury, and executioner. What you then do is open the door for the rest of the world to say, well, goodness, we better find an escape hatch, just the way the United States would if the shoe was on the other foot. And so you have to find an escape hatch. Well, what you are seeing is a global, if this were a word, it would be called detreasurization. It's less about de-dollarization that everyone focuses on. It's selling treasuries. Treasuries no longer are trusted by a large portion of the world, not only from a standpoint of sanctions and or confiscation and outright kicked out of SWIFT, but at the same time, our fiscal irresponsibility is such that holding treasuries or long duration bonds from the United States government is as silly as a mud wall. It's silly.
And it seems like that's part of Scott Bessent's analysis from what we see in his own actions and activity. And I'm going to hold you right there because I want to continue right where we left off when we get back from this very, very quick break. We'll be right back with Andy Schechtman.
Here is the marine forecast from the Talk of
No worries.
Water Center. A small craft advisory continues Showers in the area today with highs topping out near 60 degrees. And on the water, northeast winds will be strong, 15 to 30 knots, seas 5 to 7 feet. The current water temperature is 64 degrees. At Cambridge, high tide 9:26 a.m., low tide 4:32 p.m., high tide 10:05 p.m. And at Rehoboth Beach, low tide 7:23 a.m., high tide 1:22 p.m., low tide 7:26 p.m.
The talk of Delmarva fishing.
I agree.
Here on 92.7 and 98.5 WGMD. You're listening to WGMD. Mike Bradley mornings on WGMD.
This WGMD Fox Business Update is brought to you by Sussex Environmental Consultants. For a healthy home, call 302-947-1810.
I'm Elizabeth McDonald, and this is the Fox Business Report.
Stocks opened sharply higher. It's looking like another winning week. Crude oil prices have eased slightly, and investors are looking at upbeat earnings news. Estee Lauder shares are up nearly 14%. The beauty giant has ended merger talks with Spanish beauty group Puig. Analysts were skeptical that the two companies would have been helped by combining. Workday shares up 7% after its quarter was upbeat, proving that HR software is still needed in the era of artificial intelligence. BJ's Wholesale opened down 5%, even though the Warehouse Club chain reported an upbeat quarter. Shoppers were looking to save on gas and were ordering more online. And earnings were higher than a year ago at tech consulting firm Booz Allen Hamilton. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Jenny Coselda. Invested in you.
45 seconds.
Protecting your home should not be a headache. Many security companies, they lock you into these multi-year contracts. No, Simply Safe Home Security, they do things differently. With Simply Safe, you get award-winning 24/7 professional monitoring around $1 a day without any long-term commitment. Simply Safe, they just want to earn your trust every day by doing a great job. Right now, you'll get 50% off your custom system by going to simplysafe.com/Hannity. Half off when you go to simplysafe.com/Hannity. And remember, there's no safe like Simply Safe.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
Memorial Day weekend, and here we have Andy Schectman, and I knew we were in for a treat, but we are right at the core of this sovereigntist versus globalist war, and we are back where bad behavior in U.S. monetary policy, not to speak of all the NGOs, the intelligence communities, but basically letting everybody know that if you are a part of the global monetary system with SWIFT and treasuries, we're going to try to control you that way, and it's seemingly blowing up in our faces, and that's where we're at. And I think that's where you were going.
Yes.
This administration seems to understand that, but now we're going to chart a new course and break the shackles of those tools.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And I do believe this administration knows it because, like I said, the fact that there has been imports of gold and silver into the United States unabated for 18 straight months since he won the election tells me that whether it be Treasury Secretary Bessent, who is a self-proclaimed gold bug, who is the administrator of the Exchange Stabilization Fund as the Treasury Secretary, could indeed be the one standing for delivery for all these billions and billions and billions and billions and billions worth of gold and silver because he doesn't need congressional approval. That's right. So do I. And I think that's very, very important fact. And maybe this is why the media is really maybe even not allowed to speak about it. But whether it be our side, Treasury Bessent, or whoever woke up this administration, or the rest of the world, I think there is a nasty phrase out there called counterparty risk. And counterparty risk is something, whether it be David Rogers' Web, The Great Taking, which I would implore everyone to watch. Go to YouTube, type in David Rogers' Web, The Great Taking. Watch
We'll put it on the show notes.
It's unbelievable. Or the rest of the world saying, geez, so, we're supposed to hold U.S. Treasuries paying 4%, but we all know that the inflation numbers coming out of the Bureau of Labor Statistics are massaged to fit an inflationary agenda, and now the new Fed chair, Warsh, wants to change the metrics once again, stripping out things that would really neuter, if you will, the inflation that is happening, at least in terms of the way that it is reported. So the theory, I guess, would be holding your wealth in dollars is akin to holding a melting ice cube. Now, that doesn't mean that we shouldn't continue to expect the dollar to be the world reserve currency. It will be for a long time. However, I believe that the Treasury will not be the preferred vehicle of reserves. Instead, it will be gold, which has doubled the performance of the 10-year Treasury for 25 years. It has 10x'd it over the last 2 years as the world is accumulating at a level no one has ever seen before, and it maintains no counterparty risk. France just repatriated all their gold from the New York Federal Reserve, where it sat for 50 years. India did it from the Bank of England last year, but the trend started in 2017 with the German Bundesbank, who said, give us back all our gold, immediately followed by the Bank of Austria, Hungary, Turkey, Poland, the Czech National Bank. They're all bringing their gold back home. They're all accumulating gold because they understand, I believe, to your point, that we are heading towards a new financial system that will be predicated, I believe, less on U.S. treasuries and more on gold as a reserve asset and a asset that will be used for settlement or clearing across the global south, whether it be currency imbalances or trade imbalances. And here in the United States, if you watch or Google Judy Shelton, Judy Shelton was Trump's nominee to run the Fed in 2016.
Right.
She was on my show twice where she flat out said to me, Andy, in no uncertain terms, President Trump told me as I was a member of the his transition staff that on July 4th, 2026, which is the biggest day of his presidency, evidently, the 250th anniversary of the country, that I believe he will peg gold to the back end of the Treasury market. Now, if he does that, that would certainly inspire confidence for a Treasury that is losing confidence. And this goes into effect. I wish we had more time to talk. I would get into the Genius Act.
Well, we could do that, but what I want to do is hold right here because I want everybody to understand that if what you're saying actually occurs, and man, I'm hoping it does, but all the plumbing, all the financial plumbing changes. I mean, it is going to be a shock to this world, which will be historic. And I guess my question is, a lot of Americans don't really understand that in our current system, you can have the banks, not just banks here in the United States, but banks around the world can print dollars into existence with their loans and inflate you right out of your stuff because we are the world reserve currency. And do you think there's a chance that as we come through this, that you get a domestic version of the dollar for transacting here domestically, and then maybe some other means of transaction as the world reserve that's backed by gold? Or how do you see that plumbing changing in a way that John Q. Public goes, aha, I get it. I'm being protected by going down this path this way?
Well, here's exactly how I believe it's going to work in a nutshell. It's in an effort to bring back manufacturing. I believe this is what it is about. I think Trump, remember what I said? We're broke. We're 200 trillion in debt. We don't make stuff. We don't make stuff. That's Triffin's dilemma. We're uneducated. 60% of the country with a literacy rate under the 6th grade, according to Ray Dalio, just in time for AI to come and kneecap jobs. Right. So the first thing that had to do was bring back all the gold. Oh, that's right. They did it. We've been seeing it every single month. The second thing they would need to do is come up with something ingenious, and they did. It's called the Genius Act. The Genius Act goes into effect next January, and it says that all money movement across the whole world, if it is in U.S. dollars, will be via blockchain. Starting next January, the blockchain trade will settle in seconds. Now, you won't notice any difference when you're looking at your bank account, but what you will notice is how fast it transfers. It'll be transferring on what's called a stable coin basis. Right. Stable coins on a blockchain network. Think of the blockchain as the highway, the stable coin as the car. Behind the car, call it the insurance, is short-term U.S. treasuries, 90-day or less. Now, think about what that does. That creates synthetic demand, not organic, synthetic demand for the front end of the Treasury yield curve, which in essence neuters the dual mandate of the Federal Reserve, at least one half of it. don't care how hawkish he is. Anytime money moves, whether you're buying a pack of cigarettes or a brand new car or a new house, anywhere in the world, if it's in dollars, it will move by a stablecoin blockchain network backed by short-term treasury synthetic demand. This is how they will keep the price down. Now, the interesting thing about it is that the interest on those treasuries is not transferable to the holder of the dollar stablecoin. The main beneficiary of the stablecoin issuance, there will be many, like the banks, JP and Citi and Goldman will issue it, but the main issuer right now is a company called USA Tether. Tether has bought more gold than anybody in the world over the past couple of years. Anybody except for Poland. Their CEO is a man named Bo Hines. Bo Hines was Trump's crypto czar through August. I believe there was a wink, wink, nod, nod. Bo, you're going to buy gold nonstop with the treasury yield that you do not pass on. You're going to buy gold, which devalues the dollar and pushes gold to the moon. They want to devalue the dollar in order to bring back manufacturing. You have to have a weak dollar. You cannot be the world reserve currency with a super strong dollar and sell your product to the world. So that is why they want gold to go to the moon, so that they can devalue the dollar. That is the only way to devalue the dollar, as is the only world reserve neutral asset. So that's the front end of the curve. Now, if Judy Shelton says we are going to issue long-dated treasuries, starting with a 50-year, backed by gold, that would mean that you can issue a long-dated treasury, redeemable in gold, get paid for that treasury up front, and have zero upfront borrowing costs to reshore manufacturing. So you bring back your manufacturing with a bond that allows it to be paid down the road in gold instead of in cash, which inspires confidence. And the Genius Act, if everyone takes that, and Tether's been buying it every single month, billions and billions every month. So you push up the price of gold, you devalue the dollar. And if Judy is right, she said they would start with a 50-year, but ultimately go to a 5, 10, 20, and 30. Now, Van Eck Funds, try to do this as quick as I can, Van Eck Funds, which is a mutual fund company, came out and said, if the dollar really did lose its reserve status, we could see gold going to $139,000 an ounce. That's crazy as that sounds. That's not me, that's them.
Right.
Let's play that out. You sell a 20-year bond today for, let's call it $20 million worth of gold. Well, that would, at today's rate, that would be 4,500 ounces of gold or so. You sell it at if gold went to $139,000, that's every time money moves, everywhere. You take it and you take the interest on those treasuries. You buy gold with it, push gold to the moon. You default on the reserve status because Triffin's dilemma says you can never have a trade surplus if you're the reserve status. You promote a multipolar world instead of a unipolar world. And here's the key. As gold goes to the moon, 20 million divided by 139,000, it's like 110 ounces. So in 20 years, you give them 110 ounces instead of 4,500 ounces today. And now you can bring back manufacturing at no upfront borrowing costs. You continue to devalue the dollar by letting gold go higher so that you can look your kids in the face and say, you too have a future. You too can become we can become the epicenter of manufacturing and intellectual property and all of the things that we're good at. But if we don't make this adjustment, we're dead in the water. That is, I believe, what they are trying to do. So the theory would be simply this. You save in dollars, you're going to go broke. You are not a contrarian, you're going to be a victim. And I think this is the only way, because my mentor, God rest his soul, Richard Russell, 20 years ago used to say the Federal Reserve is trapped. They have two choices but to inflate or die. This is option number 3. You soft default on the world reserve status in order to back the back end of the treasury with gold, in order to devalue the dollar, bring back manufacturing, and give our children a chance, because you cannot be reliant on countries like China for everything from aircraft parts to aspirin. And if we don't do this, what future do our children have in a world where AI is going to come and take all the good jobs?
So you're making my argument for me, which is we really are on the eve of our 250th at a Y in the road.
Yes.
We can choose to be a failing empire.
Yes.
And cling to what we've always done, or we can choose a different path of wealth and freedom going forward. And as we choose wealth and freedom, because that's what we want, we don't want to fail our founders, we don't want to fail our grandkids. We've got some very clear choices to make, but in the interim, on the way to that place, Americans are going to feel amazing amounts of turbulence. We're going to see crises. In a sovereigntist versus globalists war, an enemy never goes quietly into the night.
Nope.
Certainly not this one. And so we're going to see those things. And I think what I hear you saying is it's time to hedge yourself. It's time to stop looking at that 401k statement, and it's time to start looking at, am I positioned to weather this storm, even if I'm a Gen Z person in a studio apartment in South Detroit? What can I do to kind of take the edge off of some of the birthing pains, if you will, to this next version of the United States? And when we get back from the break, we're going to talk to Andy Schectman because I want his ideas about freedom.
Here's a look at your Delmarva forecast. Rain showers likely today. Otherwise, cloudy skies expected. Daytime highs approaching 61. Winds out of the east 10 to 20 miles per hour. Cloudy skies expected tonight. Chance of rain showers. Lows dip down to about 52. Storms likely tomorrow. Highs level off around 63. Overcast skies. I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center, inland. Currently 60.
The best mix of news, talk, and sports. 92.7 and 98.5. The Talk of Delmarva. News on the hour on WGMD.
You've probably heard all those ads for life insurance. Just a few dollars a day, apply online in minutes, no medical exam. Simple, easy, and cheap, right? Now you're thinking, maybe I should get a quote. Well, smart thinking. Everyone should have life insurance. But here's what they don't tell you. Those few dollars a day rates, they're for young people in perfect health. That's why everyone calls Big Lou the 50 to 60-year-old not-so-perfect candidate. Like you. You take prescription meds and you're overweight. Winner, fried chicken dinner. Well, Big Lou works with life insurance companies that want people like you with no surprises after you apply. In fact, if you're a 50-year-old guy with a few health glitches, Lou could probably find you $1 million of term life coverage for about $200 a month. So yeah, you need life insurance. But unless you're young and healthy, you gotta call Big Lou because he's like you. Older, heavier, and on meds too. Get a quote right now at 800-444-9336, 800-444-9336, or biglou.com.
When customers search for your business, what do they find? Wrong hours? Outdated info? No reviews?
TechnoGoober fixes that. Our local listings management makes sure your business info is accurate everywhere. Google, Yelp, Facebook, Apple Maps, you name it. More trust, more traffic, more sales. Be everywhere your customers are with TechnoGoober.
Visit technogoober.com today. That's all one word. technogoober.com.
Listen to the Rehoboth Foodie on 92.7 and 98.5, Saturdays 2 till 4 p.m. Brought to you locally by Touch of Italy, Lewis, and Rehoboth Beach, and Woody's, Dewey Beach.
First Light Delmarva with Mike Bradley, a weekday morning magazine beginning at 5 with
30
local and
seconds.
national news, traffic, weather, ag report, business news, and sports. Starting your day in the know on 92.7 and 98.5 WGMD.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
Where do you think American national security comes from? Because I'm going to tell you, as a military general, it doesn't come from a jet. It doesn't come from a tank, and it doesn't come from an aircraft carrier. Our national security is rooted and based on economic prosperity, and wealth and freedom are inextricably linked. Indeed, our founders, when they found there was no place to go, there was no way to own a business, there was no way to have private property without the crown destroying their rights and their decisions, they took action. Well, here we are, and our founders left us this beautiful birthright that we don't actually have to grab muskets and get out in the streets. But we better be smart about the money And that's why we're talking to Andy Scheckman today. And he's a great American, but he also understands the economics and what is actually happening and the forces that are coming about to provide these opportunities to us. But you can't just be a couch potato and do nothing. You need to listen to this type of education, and you need to actually take action on your own. But we'll come together as a country, as we always do. Andy, take us on the path to freedom from an economic perspective.
Yeah, I mean, the path for freedom is to pay yourself first. I think is to, of course, in any scenario, I think it's to do your best to remove yourself from any debt obligation, if that's possible. Pay yourself first, get out of debt, think about the future. But again, I just think that let me give you an example of why I think holding dollars is a big mistake. And I'll use an example that I often cite. Let's talk about real estate properties. In 2005, the average price of a house in the United States was $240,000. And today it's $500,000. You've doubled your house in 21 years. The house values in middle America has doubled. That's great. That should make people feel happy. That's how people feel wealthy. This is why they've suppressed interest rates forever, because it makes people feel this illusion of prosperity in your 401k and your real estate. And your advisor would say to you, well, John, why would you ever want to own gold that pays no interest? Okay, well, let's use that. Let's follow that logic. So in 2005, when that house was $240,000, gold was $450 on average for the year. That's like 530 ounces of gold, thereabouts, right? So you could have used the 530 ounces to pay off your house that your grandfather left you, the 530 ounces of gold. You paid off. You have no mortgage. You have no debt. That's great, right? That is something that I think people normally would be smart doing, but just not using your gold, because today those 530 ounces of gold that have been sitting under your mattress for 21 years, instead you took out a mortgage, your house price doubled, it worked out good. The 530 ounces that your advisor would tell you is silly to own because it pays no interest has now gone up to $2.5 million and buys you 5 houses. You can go back to 1971 and pick out any asset you would like and measure it in gold, and you will see this is largely the case, that assets are going way up in dollar terms, but way down in gold terms, because gold is the barometer by which we measure everything. It maintains your standard of living. So if I were speaking to a room full of college kids, I would say, number one, pay yourself first. Every single paycheck. When I started my company, I was 19 years old. I'm 55 today. I started with my father. I went to the University of Minnesota with intentions of playing baseball and tore up my knee. I'm barely 20 years old. My father says, start the company with me. There's one rule and only one rule. You will buy something. I don't care if it's a silver dime every 2 weeks when you get paid. I'm promising you, it was the best gift I have ever been given in my life to understand the power of compounding, of time, of effort. And I have honored my promise to him, as I've owned the company outright for over 20 years. And he won't fire me anymore, even though I still talk to him every day. But I've honored my promise to him, and I bought something every 2 weeks for 36 years. It's the best gift I've ever been given. Pay yourself first. Save in assets, not in dollars. The wealthy people save in assets. Assets will feed you. Liabilities, which are the U.S. dollar, will eat you. When my father and mother got married in 1963, my dad graduated college. And he said, you know, Andy, your mom and I could live comfortably in 63. On my first salary out of college at $6,000 a year, we could live comfortably. I said, that's impossible. He said, no, it's not. Look it up. The average salary in 63 was $10,000. So first job out of college, sure. So ask yourself, what has happened in this country? Has everything got that much more expensive, or has the dollar by which we measure things in gotten that much worth less? And that's the issue. And that is the story, is that the compounding of interest working against you and the falling dollar are the mistakes that almost everybody makes. Instead, save in assets, not in dollars, and pay yourself first by allowing you to have compounding of interest work for you instead of against you. And it can be compounding of time too, in the case of a non-interest bearing asset like gold.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Earlier in the week, we were talking with Mitch Vexler about the scam on property tax, and how they're reappraising these houses up to astronomical values to accommodate malfeasance, essentially in school budgets and banks and kickbacks and corruption. It's happening in 34 states. But the problem is, you get folks on fixed incomes, and then the property tax bill comes, and it's now much higher. Property tax itself being a complete scam, and they lose their property. They lose everything they save for. And I think some of the wisdom that you're putting here is well, that's an asset that's depreciating anyway that you have to maintain because you're living in it. It's not making you any money. And here comes the government to take it from you. If you had some other assets where you hedged yourself, you now have options to stave off bad behavior. And I think it gets to the point where wealth and freedom are inextricably linked. One begets the other. You don't have freedom if you're not taking care of yourself financially. And that doesn't start with an ounce of gold or an ounce of silver. It starts with education to learn about it. And whether you were taught about it in school or whether you had dads like you and I both had, you're going to have to get that education, and you're going to have to get it into your kids' hands. On our Meineke Car Care Done Right talk line, I've got everybody who is lined up here, and they want to know more about Miles Franklin and this incredible company that you've built.
Well, you're awesome. I appreciate that. But before I do that, real quick, I want to read you one paragraph, and this is kind of the mic drop moment. Remember, I told you that Poland has been buying more gold than anyone in the world for the last couple of years. This is another thing that I never thought I would hear from a central banker. They asked the head of the Polish National Bank. His name is Adam Glapinski. Adam, why are you buying all this gold? Why is Poland buying gold? Now, I want you to think about this. This would be no different than a four-star general talking about something in the military. You should listen, right? This is coming from a central banker. He says, in these difficult times of global turmoil and the search for a new financial order, right there, the first thing
there you go.
Talked about, a reset. In these difficult times of turmoil and the search for a new financial order, gold is the only safe investment for state reserves. Here is the second point right here. Gold will retain its value even when someone cuts off the power to the global financial system, destroying traditional assets based on electronic accounting records. Let me say that again. Gold will retain its value even when someone cuts off the power to the global financial system, destroying traditional assets based on electronic accounting records. Of course, we don't assume this will happen, but as the saying goes, forewarned is forearmed, and as the central bank is required to be prepared for even the most unfavorable conditions. You have a central banker telling you they're looking for a new financial order, and be careful when someone shuts off the power to the global financial system, destroying all the electronic accounting records. That's a reason to own it. Miles Franklin has been in business for 36 years. We've done $15 billion in sales. We've never had a customer complaint ever. The best way to get our most competitive pricing, I have 150 outside affiliates, from financial advisors to influencers to also, and for that reason, we only post prices up to $10,000 on our website. We try and allow our outside affiliates the latitude to sell as cheap as they want. So the bottom line is this: we don't post our larger quantity prices. You can send us an email at info at milesfranklin.com with any questions you have heard here or any questions that you have related to global economics, precious metals IRAs, any of these things. There is zero obligation, or you can just ask for our price list, which will be as good or better than anyone in North America. We update it continuously, but we do not publish it online for a myriad of reasons. That's info at Miles, M-I-L-E-S, Franklin like Ben Franklin, info at milesfranklin.com. No obligation, just for the price list or any questions that you have related to this or anything else.
One of the things I've loved most since I started my media career out of anger at the fall of Kabul is that I get to have great discussions with just giant brains, and I'm always better for it. I'm always better educated, and I love it that there's an audience out there that we can take along with us. And honestly, Andy, this hour's gone by like in 5 minutes, and so I would invite you to Dangerous Intellectuals, and I'm very much looking forward to our next discussion.
As am I. As am I. Would love to do that. And if you are as good of a pilot and a general as you are a radio commentator, boy, we need more people like you.
Thanks, bro.
And 98.5 WUSX Seaford, the talk of Delmarva.
Sorry about that. Lost track of time.
We need a plan B with Iran. I'm Dave Anthony, Fox News. That's what Secretary of State Marco Rubio says, even though he reports slight progress in talks with Iran trying to make a deal.
Plan B is, what if Iran refuses to open the straits? What if Iran decides we refuse to open the straits, we're going to own the straits, and we're going to charge tolls for it? Okay, at that point, something has to be done about it.
Adding that some of our allies should be part of that solution because they depend more on oil from the Strait of Hormuz, making them
more deeply impacted by this than even the United States is.
As President Trump remains critical of NATO for not doing enough in the Iran conflict, the U.S. may shrink its presence in Europe.
Secretary Rubio in Sweden, after meeting with NATO nation foreign minister, says there are going to be adjustments to how many and where U.S. troops are stationed in their countries.
And it's been done in coordination with our allies. I'm not saying they're going to be thrilled about it, but they certainly are aware of it.
President Trump reversed the cancellation of a troop deployment to Poland. He announced earlier this month the withdrawal of 5,000 troops from Germany.
Fox's Chris Foster. Gas has surged in the Iran conflict more than $1.50, just a penny shy of a 4-year high today at $4.55 per gallon. For regular AAA's Robert Sinclair tells Fox Business.
Every single state in the union is above $4 a gallon. 5 states are above $5 a gallon, and one is in the $6 a gallon range. That's a big burden for a lot of drivers.
Despite that, AAA is predicting record Memorial Day travel this weekend. In a few minutes at the White House, President Trump will watch Kevin Warsh sworn in as the new Federal Reserve Chairman, replacing Jerome Powell, who the president harshly criticized for not cutting interest rates enough. It's a record morning on Wall Street. The Dow has surged to a new all-time high, gaining over 300 points. We still don't know the cause of Kyle Busch's sudden death that has shocked NASCAR fans and drivers. Casey Mears tells Fox.
He had that next-level talent that I think as a competitor, nobody really wanted to admit, but he had something special, something that was just a little bit better than everybody else.
Kyle Busch won more NASCAR races than anyone. His last one just Friday. He was only 41. America's listening to Fox News.
Life is full of challenges, but you don't have to face them alone. At intouch.org, you'll find powerful sermons from Dr. Charles Stanley, daily devotionals, and resources designed to strengthen your faith and bring hope into your everyday life. Whether you're searching for encouragement, biblical wisdom, or practical guidance, intouch.org is here to help you grow closer to God. Discover truth that speaks to your heart. Visit intouch.org today. Thanks.
A small business affirmation from Progressive. Plumbers, today will be a good day. You will be profitable. Your clients will be nice. No one will stand over you and tell you how to fix the thing they actually hired you to fix. You will also feel at peace after switching to Progressive, America's #1 commercial auto insurer. See if you can save in as little as 8 minutes at progressivecommercial.com.
Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates, #1 commercial auto insurer from the NAIC's 2024 National Premium Data.
Delmarva's home for local news, 92.7 and 98.5 WGMD, the talk of Delmarva.
The news is brought to you by Wings to Go Long Neck. Open every day at 11 a.m. Order on DoorDash or call 302-947-9444.
Woman from Worcester County heading to prison after an animal cruelty investigation that started nearly a year ago. Patricia Gattaletta was sentenced to 10 years in prison with all but 3.5 years suspended. That comes after a Worcester County Sheriff's Office investigation in Snow Hill last June, where authorities found 57 dogs and 9 cats living in severely overcrowded and unsanitary conditions. Many of the animals suffering from serious medical neglect. Investigators say Gattaletta was operating a complex scheme using multiple aliases and fraudulent methods to buy and sell dogs. She was found guilty of a theft scheme along with multiple counts of animal cruelty. The traditional Sussex County Memorial Day service returning to the Circle in Georgetown. The event Sunday, sponsored by the Georgetown Kiwanis Club and the Korean War Veterans Association, kicks off at 1:30 p.m. This year's keynote speaker, retired Army Lieutenant Colonel John Fisher, a native of Seaford and a decorated pilot who served in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Mali. He'll be delivering an address focused on community service. The program will feature the placing of memorial wreaths by local veterans groups, a rifle salute by the Delaware National Guard's 198th Signal Battalion, and a performance of taps. Organizers of the Sussex County Memorial Day service say it will last a little less than an hour, about 50 minutes, they say. Seating on the circle is limited, so if you're going, you're encouraged to bring your own folding chair for that ceremony.
WGMD AccuWeather.
Unfortunately, not the greatest forecast for the Memorial Day weekend. We start out cloudy today, windy and cool, rain this afternoon, 61, breezy and rainy tonight. Tomorrow, windy and cool, occasional rain, high 60, on and off rain and drizzle Sunday. And Monday, cloudy and cool with a couple of showers as well, 66 at the beach, 79 inland. More on these and other stories you can visit talkofdelmarva.com. I'm Jerry Lademan in the Talk of Delmarva News.
Craving wings? Head to Wings to Go Long Neck, now under new ownership, where flavor meets freshness. Choose from 29 sauces and dry rubs. Enjoy traditional or boneless wings, always cooked to order. Try cheesesteaks and their popular soft shell crabs. Conveniently located at 25938 Plaza Drive in Millsboro. Open daily at 11 a.m. Call 302-947-9444 or order on DoorDash. Wings to Go Long Neck, simply great wings since 1985.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
So, welcome back. I think that so far in the first 2 hours, you have heard nothing but what I would call the cool kids. And the cool kids today are talking about freedom, economics, and the world that's bearing down on this United States of America, mostly because the United States of America has let the enemy in the door. And actually, they've been with us since the end of the Revolutionary War. They just took on different forms. The redcoats said, "Oh, we're wearing red coats. We've got muskets. We better take these off. Hey, let's come back and mess up the White House in 1812." They tried again. And then the financialists came in and they said, "Oh, this is a much better way to take down America. We'll just buy off all the politicians. We'll own the banks, and we'll destroy them from the inside out." Well, here we are. And I am so happy and pleased to welcome our next cool kid because she is a kindred spirit. Ann Vandersteel is a rabble-rouser. She is an alternative media personality. You can go to her podcasts. You can see her on everybody's podcast. And the cool part is she is a free, independent, and critical thinker. So President Trump doesn't get a pass with Ann Vandersteel. If she's calling balls and strikes and there's something going on that looks like admin chicanery or needs a little more explanation, she's going to throw that rock. And you know what? I'm going to be right there next to her throwing it with that rock with her. But I can't thank you enough for coming on where today, at the start of our Memorial Day weekend, we find our country really at this Y in the roads. Are we going to dim the lights on the United States and watch a republic go off into the long night like so many empires have? Or are we going to reinvigorate ourselves, honor our founders and the beer swillers at the taverns that Sam Adams used to frequent, and more importantly, honor our grandchildren? Ann, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, Blaine, it's awesome to be with you. And you're absolutely right. I voted for President Trump, what is it, nine times, all 3 times, plus in the
Right.
primaries. So at this point, we have to be really honest with where we are as a country. And, you know, a lot of people died and spilled blood, including my own family members back in the Revolutionary War that fought and died for this country. And I truly believe I have a family lineage of service to our country in the military. And this is my service, speaking truth to the reality of the situation. I don't even want to call it truth to power, because really we are the power. We are the power brokers. It is our country. We are a republic. And President Trump works for us. And he told us he was giving the country back from the DC power brokers to the people in January of 2017. And so while we are grateful he is in office for so many reasons, there are things that we do need to call out, just like we should call out anybody, just like your own child. If they're doing something wrong, you love them. You're never going to get rid of them, but you have to give course correction and feedback. And I think that's where we are. And that's what makes America great, is the idea of this republic, that on this Memorial Day, we should pause and thank those that sacrificed for our country so that we have this freedom to be critical of those that are public servants, not the power brokers. And this is the model that has been inverted. Our Constitution is a trust indenture between God, the government as our trustee, and we, the people, the beneficiaries. But they have flipped that model. And you talk about, post the Civil War, it's a big deal what happened after the Civil War. That's when they flipped that model and they've incrementally robbed our republic and the people, the benefactors of our rights and of our money. And we're in this battle to undo that and get us over the hump. And I think people are now finally comprehending what you're talking about here. And it's important that we educate people on this.
Yeah, it's a steady erosion. And
it is.
I love Ben Franklin because Ben's comments are, it's a republic if you can keep it. Well, we have stood by in the immense prosperity after World War II. We've talked about Bretton Woods. We've talked about, hey, we'll save Europe, but you're going to have to buy our stuff. And all the prosperity that came with it. But Americans got soft. And Americans didn't pay attention to the fact that the factory was down the street was closing because a globalist president anointed at the Royal Institute of International Affairs decided that we need to be enlightened and we need to have a global environment. We'll all do well at the end of the day. You just need to give up that $35 an hour Detroit job and send it to Mexico and we'll be fine. Well, here we are. We're hollowed out. And it's at a time. And what came back? The next opium war from China with fentanyl filling up all of these jobless spaces. And then you've got the forgotten man from the Depression now on drugs and with really no hope. But wait, it's worse. We get here. We've had nothing but endless wars, endless manipulations of American culture, and all the way in the background, a steady erosion of liberty. And here we are at this Y in the roads. Yes, I don't want to have Kamala Harris, Comrade Harris, at any point in time at the helm. But honestly, this is about a constitution and a republic and freedom. It's not about one man. And so it is our right to stand up and say, hey, I'm bitching. I am. I'm standing up. And so where we're at is, are we looking at down the barrel of our final handcuffs? AI, CBDC, social credit scores. I'm going to lock you in. I hope you like the data center because you can't drink water anymore. We're going to look at that. Or are we going to say, I think it's probably time that we, the people, took the country back and we'll actually control it. And you, the swamp, of which there is no aisle, I'm sorry to break that to you.
There's not an aisle.
Don't be a Republican. Don't be a Democrat. Be an American. And, and we need to take back over. But I think that starts at the local level. What do you think?
100%. A good friend of ours, General Flynn, talks about the local level, and local action has a national impact. In fact, I was chatting with him just a minute ago in DMs and Signal. And we are at this point that Americans, if they don't finally just get off their butt, get out from behind the keyboard worrying and step into a role somewhere in their local community. I don't care if you're the dog catcher, but at least go to, even if you're a renter, go to the school board meetings, because your rent includes the property taxes, which fund these school boards, which we now know have become DEI woke factories. And, indoctrination, it's the corporate office of indoctrination for the students that are attending these schools. And this is what we're facing. I mean, we're looking at, do you want a woke child changing your diaper and feeding you your slop when you're 85 years old? Or do you want someone who is wide awake, values life, understands freedom that has been granted to us by God and protected by our Constitution and our Bill of Rights? This is the choices we're looking at. And right now, I want to go back in time a little bit, if it's okay, Blaine, and if you don't want to go there, that's fine. But, the 1868 time period was really important because we have been, like you said, the redcoats came and they just changed their outfits and they're still here. This whole thing about, I'm sure you've read the book, The Committee of 300, right? You've got the Knights of the Order of the Garter. You've got the Inner Privy Council. You've got the British monarchy. And then, like you said, the Royal Institute for International Affairs, which includes, in that umbrella, Tavistock, NATO. You've got the United States presidency and the monarchy. And that special relationship
Fabian
isn't
Society. Yeah.
exactly. It's not just about, oh, we're here to, back each other up if there's a war. It really is this special relationship that has been guided by servants of the Committee of 300 over, many years, like the Club of Rome. You've got all of these different movements and post-industrialization, countercultural movements, such as remember the drugs, sex, and rock and roll, the hedonism, all
Yep.
that stuff in the 60s.
All planned.
It's all planned. So,
Yep.
when you look at Stanford Research Institute, all these attempts by NATO to adopt this sort of Aquarian conspiracy, the Bilderbergers and, Illuminati, free, all of it. I mean, you can go on and on and on. There's lists of these organizations
Well, yeah,
out
but the
there.
CIA brought out the words conspiracy theorist, and they wanted you to understand that that's what the name we're going to call you, so you'll shut up about the truth. So when we
That's
come
right.
back, I want to pick this up, and I'll leave you with this little teaser. When I've been a commander at every single level, and now as a civilian, it's that statement from your people. Oh, somebody ought to do something about that.
Yeah, that's somebody's you.
That's somebody's you. Okay, we'll be right back with Ann Vandersteel.
Here's a look at
Hey,
your
Ann,
Delmarva
Yes, sir.
forecast. Rain showers likely this afternoon. Otherwise, cloudy
Steve?
skies expected. Daytime highs approaching 61. Easterly winds 10 to 20 miles per hour. Cloudy skies expected again tonight. Chance of rain showers. Lows dip down to about 52. Cloudy skies tomorrow. Thunderstorms likely. Daytime highs approaching 63. I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center, inland. Right now, it's 63 degrees.
MJ Powell, weekdays 3 to 6, here on 92.7 and 98.5 WGMD.
11 a.m. Wellness Minute is locally brought to you by Pam Health Rehabilitation Hospitals. When a stroke strikes, every second counts, not just for survival, but for recovery. And what happens in the days that follow? That's where acute rehabilitation comes in. Unlike other levels of care, acute rehab offers intensive, personalized therapy starting just days after a stroke, when your brain is most ready to heal, offering physical therapists to rebuild strength, occupational therapists restoring independence, speech therapists to connect words and thoughts, and a nationally recognized stroke-certified program. Studies showed that stroke survivors in acute rehab recover faster, regain more function, and are likely to return home. So don't wait. Ask your doctor about acute rehabilitation at PAM Rehab, because the sooner you start, the stronger your comeback. For more, visit pamhealth.com or call 302-672-5800.
Ready for a change of naturally cool scenery? Let's go coastal. On Maryland's coast, it's easy to slow down and enjoy the moment. From Ocean City to Berlin, Snow Hill, and Pocomoke City, you'll find charming shops, diverse dining options, local artwork and murals, and plenty of history to explore. Grab some fresh seafood, go on a hike, or take in the waterfront views on the Pocomoke River or coastal bays and just relax. It's everything you've been needing and more. Start planning your getaway at visitmarylandscoast.org. Maryland's Coast. You're welcome.
Views and opinions expressed are those of the hosts, callers, and guests, and not necessarily the staff, management, ownership, advertisers, or sponsors of WGMD. Here's how to listen to WGMD's 98.5 on your electronic device. Simply say, Alexa, open Talk of Delmarva Seaford, and you'll hear all your favorite programming from 98.5, the Talk of Delmarva, on air, online, and streaming. The Rita Cosby Show, weeknights at 10 on WGMD's 98.5.
Broadcasting from the Planet Geek Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
Okay, so we're back, and I've persuaded Ann Vandersteel to be here the entire hour with us, so I'm excited about that. We were talking about, lightly, we weren't diving right into it, but we were talking about the concept of American apathy. And what I wanted to start with was one of my favorite Winston Churchill quotes. Not that he's a really good guy if you study his history in depth, but I was thinking about when he said you can always trust the Americans to do the right thing after they've tried everything else. And typically what happens in our nation is it's not till we're really backed into a corner and we are looking at very few options and all hell could break loose. And that's seemingly when we rally together and we go, holy cow, we got to pull this together and get this thing fixed. I think we're at one of those moments now. What do you think?
I absolutely agree with you, Blaine. You know, it's interesting here in Florida. We have a big governor's race, and the governor, the front runner, has been endorsed by President Trump, Byron Donalds. But the information about his background and about his voting, should we say, past, back that he's, you know, it's probably the fourth worst attendance for voting in Congress is Byron Donalds. He's very pro AI data centers. He's got a lot of issues. We'll just leave that. His wife has issues. But the boomer crowd is all in because President Trump's endorsing him and they watch Fox News. The younger crowd, the Gen Xers and the Gen Zers, are paying attention to other names like Paul Renner, who is moratoriums on AI data center, who is talking about eliminating property tax and a whole host of other really good things, not to mention he's the son of a pastor, he's a solid Christian. But you've got other people like James Fishback, who's out there as well. And he's really sort of ginning up the younger Gen Z crowd. And he's saying all the right things. He has issues that are, you know, going to come forward through some lawsuits. He's ineligible because he was voting in D.C. 3 years ago, so statutorily doesn't qualify. But that's okay because he's getting people activated. And the boomers have become lethargic because they've just become conditioned to, well, thank God President Trump's in. We're just going to, whatever he says goes because he's told us fake news is fake news. And that's awesome on some levels, but on other levels, it robs you of your critical thinking. And the critical thinking is what has led to apathy. But the younger generation gets it because guess what? They're being shut out of being first-time home buyers. They're looking at well into their 40s, 50s before they can afford a home. And I have 6 kids and none of them own a house right now. And my husband and I are like, you know what, guys, let's pump the brakes. Don't buy anything because the upside potential at this point just isn't there, particularly with the interest you're going to pay. So this is where I'm starting to see sort of this talk of, I don't want to use the word revolution because that's probably too strong a word, but maybe it's a mental gymnastic revolution of thinking of like, this isn't working right now. We have got to make some changes and we're being shut out. So the divide between the haves and the have-nots is getting greater while the boomers are pretty much set for the most part. They didn't have some major life catastrophe. It's the younger generation that you may find brilliant and able to achieve that. So this is where I think you're going to see that revolutionary mindset come in and start to discharge and go, wait a minute, I'm not going to accept things for what they are because it's just not helping me.
No, that's exactly right. And so we were talking with Andy Scheckman last hour about a reset in the monetary system.
Yes.
And then before that with Guy Van Treska about what a brand new type of Manhattan project would be if we harness these new technologies the right way, not starving ourselves or turning off lights or not drinking water. And we've been going at that. So honestly, I look at our Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Gen X, or well, Gen X, we've got to lead this thing. But when I look at the loss of opportunity that they've had, my kids have lost opportunity. I think when you have been robbed, when you've seen a future taken from you, that my parents bought their first house at this age, you suddenly start to wake up. And I don't care how your education's been co-opted. I look at my own education. I'm a military officer, true believer the entire way through. This war happened for that reason. That war happened for this reason. Slap your patch. Now we're going to go kill a bunch of Afghans and we're going to show them who America. And then you start to look at the substrate and you go, is this really what we should be doing?
Exactly.
And so I think the younger generations are really coming to this place of awareness that we've been ripped off. And if we do get a new monetary system coming on, I think they're the ones who are going to lead us into a whole new generation of what America could be if she's self-governed and free. But I think it's our generation that's got to guide and mentor them. And I think it's our generation that has to call out the Byron Donalds of the world and say, you may want to look into this. He's actually not who you think he is.
Correct. And I think a lot of it too is the tangible assets. You know, people are starting to recognize when, and I know the Gen Zers probably aren't reading Genius Act, Clarity Act, They are, they've been bought into the whole crypto thing, and crypto is great, but I think it still needs to be backed by something. We don't have sound money in this country, and that is why we have fallen so far behind. Just coming back from South Africa and listening to some of the people there, while they still have an oppressive regime, their own president wouldn't allow Elon to deliver Starlink because he's not a black man. I mean, this is kind of the most ridiculous stuff. They're really, going in the other direction on things like that. But the people of South Africa understand that BRICS has been positive because they have used gold to settle debts. If their trading partners, say Brazil and Russia are trading oil for soybeans, well, clearly Brazil is going to have to make up the difference in price of oil to soybeans. So they pay in gold. That's how they settle debts. This is where we need to go. And you've got companies around the, companies like Abex Exchange, for instance, just went live on the Toronto Stock Exchange. They were on the OTC. They've been around about, 6-7 years, but they are using an exchange to trade physical assets and settle the debt in real time. This financial instrument where you represent something on a piece of paper, an ETF, electronic traded fund versus the physical tangible. Look what's happening with COMEX. They can't, they're going to have FDDs, failures to deliver, because people want the physical. They recognize Asia and the price disparity between physical in Asia versus paper here in the States. This is what the kids are getting now. And that to me is very exciting, because that's what's going to drive us back to some constitutional foundational principles like real money. And then the cool kids will be able to afford that house. We got to get there.
That's exactly right. And they need our help in understanding the things that they don't understand yet. I don't think as a generation that they've been robbed in the education department. They don't know their history, their real history. They don't understand macroeconomics. They don't understand some of the forces politically that have been swirling around us for the longest time. And so when I go to a Gen X or a Gen Alpha or a Gen Z, and I'm like, the war is here. It is World War III. It is sovereigntists versus globalism. And they're like, what are you talking about? No, the war is in Iran. It's like, no, that's just a battlefield. What's wrong with you?
That's right.
They need our help.
They need our help. You're absolutely right. And I think that when you look at the word sovereign, you're seeing that word used more and more. The 10th Amendment is real, and it needs to be stood upon, and you need to exercise it daily. This is one of the reasons why Paul Rennert, I think, is going to somehow be that dark horse candidate that comes out, because if we look back historically at what happened in COVID, we recognize that you had counties here in Florida, Collier, who had to stand up their own Bill of Rights sanctuary county, as if the Bill of Rights didn't exist, but they had to enforce it by getting a resolution and an ordinance passed in Collier County. Now that has now spread, and we're seeing that happen around the state of Florida. I'm going to work here in Martin County, Florida, for the same reason, just to get it's an awareness campaign of, hey, you can push back on tyranny coming out of an oppressive government. And again, I'm not going to lay this at President Trump's feet. What I am going to lay out there is that we've got, a corporatocracy running this country of agencies. And these agencies have absolutely just taken roughshod over all of us for a long time. And they have no accountability to any of us, because you and I didn't pick them. We didn't elect them. So I do hope, to your point on the education, the Department of Education, we finally do get Linda McMahon just sort of throwing in the neutron bomb and imploding the whole thing and just dissolving it. I don't want to see more funding. I want to see it burnt down and it's gone. And that's
not in the Constitution. Get rid of it.
Yeah, exactly. None of them are in the Constitution. Get rid of all of it.
Well, speaking of not in the Constitution, so let's set that COVID stage. What I think that did was that actually planted the seeds of more and more tyranny that has gone unchecked.
Correct.
And honestly, if there's a rock I want to throw at the Trump administration, it's like, stand up for the Constitution. I want to hear talk about the Bill of Rights, because I'm in northern Idaho, thank goodness, because not 30 minutes from me, there is a state that just passed a law called Washington, or the People's Republic of Washington, and they've got a new law called the Casual Driving Law. And what the Casual Driving Law is the governor signed out this law. I can't even believe this. They signed out a law that says, and I think it's probably some worship at the altar of climate change or nonsense. And the Casual Driving Law says you need to have a purpose when you use your car. You can't just go clear your mind and jump in a car and drive down the country road and say, oh yeah, I need to take a drive. I'm gonna go here. So if you get pulled over, the cop can go, well, where are you going? Now my first answer, any state in this union is going to be anywhere I want, and it's none of your business.
Exactly.
This is the Fourth Amendment. Have a nice day.
That's exactly right.
They just signed out a law that says, no, we don't recognize the Fourth Amendment here. And we're going to pull you over for casual driving.
No.
You're loitering. I said so. You've been here 5 minutes. Now,
No,
you
no,
don't
no,
get
no.
there overnight. You don't get there overnight. Boiling frog is how you get there. It starts with
Well-
COVID and you going, oh yes, 6 foot distance, 6 foot distance.
Right. So when does one brave soul in the state of Washington, or do they need to fly somebody in from Texas or Florida to help these people out, or maybe Northern Idaho, to say, there is a supremacy clause, and what you're doing is absolutely repugnant to my right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness as defined by God and protected by the Bill of Rights and our Constitution. And the governor should be literally impeached over even signing
question.
such a bill into law. There's no question. But this is where we're lacking, going back to the Department of Education. The people in Washington are Dane Bramaged, as I like to say. They've been
Yeah, right.
miseducated. They have
two
Dane,
tacos shy of
I
a
say Dane
combination
Bramaged to be
platter.
funny, but it's true.
Yeah.
They are brain damaged and they're miseducated and they are afraid. Some people are just simply afraid to stand up and speak out. That's problematic, is from where I'm sitting. And this is, when you see things like the DOJ talking about, trying to limit your free speech and so on and so forth, because you disagree with the presence of other countries influencing our politics. That's problematic too, because now you're going to threaten me with a good time of I might be hauled into something over my views. No.
So when we get back from the Meineke Car Care Done Right break that we're about to take, I want to go with you right to the epicenter of this country's darkness on constitutional stuff. Let's go to California and talk about it.
Great. Let's do it.
Okay, we'll be right back.
Here is the marine forecast.
I'm supposed to say the word Meineke 4 times.
Center.
I've said it twice today.
Advisory continues. Showers in the area today with highs topping out near 60 degrees. And on the water, northeast winds will be strong, 15 to 30 knots, seas 5 to 7 feet. The current water temperature is 64 degrees. At Cambridge, high tide 9:26 a.m., low tide 4:32 p.m., high tide 10:05 p.m. And at Rehoboth Beach, low tide 7:23 a.m., high tide 1:22 p.m., low tide 7:26 p.m.
92.7 and 98.5 WGMD, where the news comes first. Jake Smith, mid-mornings on WGMD. You're listening to WGMD.
This WGMD Fox Business Update is brought to you by Sussex Environmental Consultants. For a healthy home, call 302-947-1810.
I'm Susan Lee, and this is the Fox Business Report.
The Dow rose to record territory today, and it could be the 8th winning week in a row for the S&P. Stocks are holding up despite some very mixed news. The University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Survey for the end of this month declined to a record low. The Conference Board's leading economic indicators, though, offering a different picture for April. That reading up 0.1%, better than expected, a sign the economy is improving. Fed Governor Christopher Waller, who favored cutting interest rates as recently as January, says growing inflation risks mean the Fed should no longer be defaulting to plans for further rate cuts. Waller says as the conflict in the Middle East stretches on, Waller says higher costs for oil and other commodities are likely to ripple through the economy. That's your Fox Business Report. I'm Ginny Cosola. Invested in you.
Protecting your home should not be a headache. Many security companies, they lock you into these multi-year contracts. No.
Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The Talk of Delmarva.
we are woefully undercapacitated when it comes to refined oil. We're sending our oil out of the country to be refined to bring it back in so we have enough to satiate the appetite of the American people. And that's not forget, our CPI numbers don't include energy, and they don't include food. And our energy products are directly related to the cost of food right now. So when we are seeing a reduction in refined products, and we've got a war going on, which is playing, mental gymnastics for people on Wall Street, but you've got, like we talked about earlier, the paper products that are trading paper of oil, suppressing the price of real physical oil right now, when real physical oil anywhere else in the world is a lot more expensive. It's the same shenanigans they did with silver, and the American people are paying for it. And frankly, we shouldn't have to. And then you have to start to question, frankly, Blaine, are the numbers coming out of the government accurate in terms of how much oil we are actually pulling out of the ground?
Oh, yes.
Because the API numbers do not correlate
I'm not
to what
believing
we
a word of
claim.
it.
Exactly. And so, when you're constantly going to the well to get more oil, it's like, well, wait a minute, we have 13 million barrels a day we're doing, and we're exporting stuff, and we're draining this strategic petroleum reserve. These are things that are problematic, and it's like a shell game going on right now.
So, Stephen, in this world, how many of these urchins that are technocrats, cubicle monsters, agendizers, elected officials, paid off K Streeters, and at the state and local level, what percentage would you put on those people that are actual citizen servant leaders? I know this is something you think about 24/7, 365.
Yeah. Are you saying how many are the good ones?
Yeah, let's start
Yeah.
there.
I want to say that everyone starts out good.
Yeah,
Most
okay, I
most
started
people
out
starts
good.
out good. Yeah. Most everybody starts out good. The issue is corruption never begins with like a suitcase full of money and some back alley. It's always a favor, a smile, an introduction, until you realize you're in the middle of something. It's usually too late, and either you follow through with what they ask you to do, or you lose everything. And that's the issue with weaponized debt in America as well, is that as long as we're all weaponized right now, we each owe $107,000 to the national debt, each and every single American. And that's including babies. It's not just adults. So they use that against everybody. If you lose your mortgage, you have a choice. Do I, close my eye for this one signature, or let them do that, and then I keep my, my paycheck coming in, or maybe get a little bonus on top. And, I got to admit, it's hard not to. I've done it. Not done it, but I've refused it, and it cost me dearly. I mean, dearly, like everything, actually. So it's a hard path to take, and most people don't have the stomach for it. They just can't do it. So my opinion is, and corruption starts like when you're a kid. Like you steal a piece of bubble gum, or whatever from the store, and it's like it's almost normalized in America. Where just a little bit here, a little bit there. Hey, we'll just tack on this extra travel expense. I'll fill out a taxi receipt, and then I'll get extra money for that. It's like it's in our everyday sort of thread.
So when you see things like that, when you see that culture, yes, I get it. It can start out innocent, but then we watch congressmen and women go in, and their net worth is about $100,000,
Yeah.
$80,000. Ann is watching this and tracking this in Florida. Doesn't this then take legions of already predisposed to corruption, because that's where the money is? And now I'm going to follow in those footsteps. I want to be an AOC who's got $29 million after 4 years of service to Congress. Ann was kind of bringing up the gubernatorial elections in Congress, and I'm wondering if the element there isn't folks who are already like, that's where the money is. That's where I'm going.
Well, you got to remember, no one gets to Congress unless they're already in the system. It's like the gray mouse syndrome.
No,
right?
that's
You
right.
have to be one of the gray mouse, or you're not getting into the cage.
Yeah.
It's simple as that.
And what do you think on that?
I agree with Stephen 100%. I mean, you have to be willing to play ball, and I'm not going to throw shade on one individual, but there's candidates I know of in Florida who are getting no traction, who had clearly had their races stolen in congressional races in the last go around, and all of a sudden get invites to the White House, and their tune has changed, and now they're getting traction out of nowhere. And it wasn't because the previous candidate had an endorsement from the White House. It had everything to do with whatever concessions they're willing to make. And doors just open. Now, I get it. Politics is dirty, it's ugly, it's worse than making sausage, and it's a give or take, just like life is always a give or take. But when you see people abandoning the principles that really got them elected, despite the fact you've had 235,000 absentee ballots pulled down in one day on a Sunday in July, and then injected into the race, and this candidate loses to another, to another candidate, that's where you have to start to ask yourself: Are people willing to sacrifice just for the almighty dollar? Which, as we all would probably agree here, it's not even real money because we don't have anything backing our dollar. So this is just this is an unfortunate side effect of what people go into politics for. They're typically a narcissistic behavior, and they're self-aggrandizing. And very few times do you get real public servant leaders, which is why what Stephen's doing with Take America Back is absolutely huge. TAB is a massive, massive boost into what we need to do to restore this republic.
Yeah, Stephen has stopped life to do TAB. He is a very successful businessman. For those who have meeting him for the very first time, he is several times an investor. He's built loads of businesses, and he's been on the outside looking in. Stephen, tell us about what you're doing.
Yeah, TAB is basically, we're building just for that reason, for the corruption and for the power places and the let's say the centers of power on both sides. It's actually one side, but optically it's two sides. We can't fight it head on. We'd lose. They'd crush us. So what we do, the only way, if you look back in time, the only way anything ever succeeded in replacing a system was something you built parallel. And it slowly people got used to it, and they started using that parallel system. So we're building a parallel system of accountability built on a doctrine. So that it's said that the Federalist Papers were written to ratify the Republic. Well, I wrote 5 books, the Citizen Servant Leader series.
I have a forward in one of them.
There you go. You do, to defend that Republic. And the way we defend the Republic isn't what people think. We don't need weapons. We don't need armies. We don't need militia. Well, we do need a militia, but not the kind of militia you think of. We need a militia of 31,440 people across America. Why? 3,144 counties across America. If we take 10 seats per county in the strategic positions, we can take America back from these, career politicians and profiteers. And it's a real simple math problem that we just have to solve. 31,000, that's 1 in 8,000 adults in America.
Right.
1/100th of 1% of Americans. If we just take veterans, Wayne, 4% of Americans are veterans. We need 1/100th of 1% of all Americans. So
right.
Every veteran just stand up, let's go, we can take it back. Now, I don't want to say that's a blanket cause, because if you look at some veterans in Congress, they're already
let's
falling.
Go to Seth Moulton. Is that what we're going to do? We're going to talk about Seth.
Let's not talk about, no, let's not do that. Kelly, Mark Kelly. No, but look, it's a real simple process. People come to jointab.us. They either sign up for the wait list for the course, which is coming out. They buy one of the 5 books, actually 7 books. We also have a really cool little pamphlet here, The Citizens Constitution, which we use just for reference for people. It's like the actual paragraph, and then underneath it is sort of the plain English paragraph, and then what the precedence was that set that. And it's all based on the HIT principles: honesty, integrity, and transparency. I added accountability and incorruptibility, so to say, which is the book coming out right now, co-authored by Chase Hughes, by the way, the world's leading behavioral specialist. This is all things that I've gathered through my whole life. I'm 59, and I brought it all together to give it back to the American people, what I've gotten from the American Republic over all these years. I served in combat. I did all that stuff that you did, Blaine. And I didn't do all what you did, but I did similar. And now it's time to give back. And you're right, I give everything up. And sometimes I'm thinking like, maybe I should have, but this is it. If you ask me,
right?
Yeah, and if you ask me though, this is it. Like, this is our last chance.
I agree.
Because
and,
1 second, if you look around the world, there's not many countries left where the citizens still have the opportunity to step into government and make a difference. We have that opportunity. 3,140 citizens servant.
So I want to do the pile on to what you're saying with Ann, and ever since the first time I saw Ann Vandersteel on the internet was during COVID. I'm locked up, can't go anywhere, can't even go to a business meeting in Seattle. and there's Ann and Mel K absolutely raising hell about what is going on, and I was like, okay, this is very important. Now I'm still going through my education that all is not what I thought it was in this country, and and I'm putting a mask on, and I'm going down to my communist grocery store where I'm going to have 6 foot distance. But what has been born out of this that I think is so important to aid what Stephen's mission is, and is this alternative media where we can grab microphones, we can be critical thinkers together, we can slaughter common mainstream news stories and say, you're just being lied to. And we're not going to have it anymore. And I think you are absolutely one of the pioneers in this space. So tell me about that journey where everybody tried to cancel you in the early days of COVID, and now all of a sudden you're on cool kid status, and it's like, oh, I got to go listen to Vandersteel because what's she saying about this?
Right. Well, yeah, I started this journey when Trump took the ride down the escalator and decided to get on Twitter. And I thought Twitter was for Beyonce and Jay-Z. I didn't know anything about it. And that's where I found like the Gateway Pundit and Breitbart. And I said, oh, I don't have to read Forbes and Wall Street Journal anymore. They're lying to me. Holy crap. What else am I going to find here? And sort of found my voice on a show called Your Voice America, which led to my own show called Steel Truth. And that's where Mel was a regular Thursday nights. And we raised hell because we could clearly now trace the steps back to the British colonialists that are still having a very heavy hand in our politics, and they weaponize other countries to get us sucked into other problems around the world that have nothing to do with making America great or making America better or taking care of Americans first or protecting our veterans, our children, whatever. We are sucked into all kinds of stuff that has nothing to do with anything that's going to make our country great. And how can you, on a plane going down, not put your oxygen mask on first before you help the guy next to you? America doesn't even have the oxygen mask in the room anywhere. So we have got to take our country back, county by county, and to the point of them trying to, shut me down. Yeah, I lost 500,000 subs on YouTube two different times. I've had 3X accounts wiped out. Even Rumble knocked me off because I had an errant previous business partner who fraudulently said I was copywriting my own content, violating my own content. So I've seen it all and I don't care. It doesn't even faze me anymore because this is what it looks like on the field of fight. And this is what we're in right now. We are standing on this Constitution and we are going to defend every single one of our Bill of Rights if it's the last dying thing I do. And if we don't, well, then we might as well move to another country that has better wine and cheese, because that's where we're headed, frankly.
So to everyone within the sound of my voice, we've got 2 patriots here. They've given up loads to stand this line. And when we talk about American apathy, that's just not acceptable anymore. And we are at that Y. And so what I would recommend is that you follow the Vandersteel or the Kuhn example, that you all join Tab and give mightily, get that checkbook out, and then promote Ann's work every single place that you can, because we're going to educate our young. We're going to take back our country. We're going to build technologies that work for us, and we're not going to pay attention to the British Empire anymore. And that's where we're going. And I can't thank you both enough for joining me on Cool Kids Friday on this Memorial Day weekend. And it's just been my honor and pleasure, and we don't have nearly enough time, but we'll get some in the future, I'm sure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Blaine.
Okay, we're going to salute the troops after the Meineke Car Care Done Right break. Thank you all.
Here's a look at your Delmarva forecast. Rain showers likely this afternoon. Otherwise, cloudy skies expected. High temperatures reach up to 63. Winds out of the east, 10 to 20 miles per hour. Cloudy skies expected again tonight. Chance of rain showers. Lows dip down to about 52. Cloudy skies expected tomorrow. Thunderstorms likely. High temperatures reach up to 63. I'm meteorologist Paul Trombley from the Talk of Delmarva Weather Center, inland. Currently, it's 63 degrees.
Where Delmarva comes to talk. 92.7 and 98.5 WGMD. Get the WGMD app online today.
You probably heard all those ads for life insurance. Just a few dollars a day, apply online in minutes, no medical exam. Simple, easy, and cheap, right? Now you're thinking, maybe I should get a quote. Well, smart thinking. Everyone should have life insurance. But here's what they don't tell you. Those few dollars a day rates, they're for young people in perfect health. That's why everyone calls Big Lou the 50 to 60-year-old not-so-perfect candidate. Like you. You take prescription meds and you're overweight. Winner, fried chicken dinner. Well, Big Lou works with life insurance companies that want people like you, with no surprises after you apply. In fact, if you're a 50-year-old guy with a few health glitches, Lou could probably find you $1 million of term life coverage for about $200 a month. So, yeah, you need life insurance. But unless you're young and healthy, you gotta call Big Lou, because he's like you, older, heavier, and on meds, too. Get a quote right now at 800-444-9336, 800-444-9336, or biglou.com.
Hi, I'm Connor, and I'm part of the commercial design team at Giuliani Associates. Law firms, medical practices, financial offices. Your space should reflect your professionalism, but it also has to function every day. Circulation, privacy, durability, efficiency. We design tenant fit-outs and commercial spaces that work operationally and position your business for growth. Giuliani Associates. Architecture is an investment. Design at betterdelmarva.com. Design at betterdelmarva.com.
You'll have about 6 minutes when we come back after Salute.
With someone saying,
We take care of each other here.
in food banks and food pantries, neighbors pack fresh food and dignity into every box, moving food from farms to families through Feeding America's nationwide network. So when that box reaches a home, it carries more than food. It carries a promise that together we can end hunger. Feeding America, led by neighbors. Take action to end hunger now at feedingamerica.org.
To honor those men and women who have defended freedom whenever and wherever it was threatened, the Talk of Delmarva presents Salute the Troops. Salute the Troops honors the sacred memory of United States Marine Corps Captain Gary Lloyd England, who was born on July 7th, 1937, and hailed from Greenvale, Long Island, New York. Captain England enlisted in the United States Marine Corps and began his tour in Vietnam on January 27th, 1967. His military occupation was a chopper pilot. He was attached to 3 Marine Amphibious Force, 1st MAW, VMO-2. On that fateful day, December 5th, 1967, Captain Gary England was killed when the UH-1E helicopter in which he was piloting crashed into a mountain west of Da Nang in Vietnam due to poor visibility. Captain England, along with 3 of his men, had been on a search and recovery operation at the time their chopper went down. Everyone aboard was killed. Captain England's chopper had been the lead aircraft, with a second helicopter following behind. That helicopter also crashed, fortunately, with no fatalities. Also killed in the lead chopper, along with Captain England, were Corporal August H. Monhoff, Gunnery Sergeant Frank E. Morey, Jr., and co-pilot Second Lieutenant Robert Isaac Terry III. Salute the Troops honors the ultimate sacrifice defending freedom in South Vietnam of United States Marine Corps Captain Gary Lloyd England. If not for Captain England's enlistment, if not for his courage piloting his UH-1E in
I let him know.
visibility on a search and recovery operation, this nation could not. This nation would never have remained free. May this grateful nation never forget the ultimate sacrifice of United States Marine Corps Captain Gary Lloyd England. Semper Fi. Captain Gary England is buried at Arlington National Cemetery. He is honored on the wall, panel 31E, line 40. For Salute the Troops, I'm Jake Smith.
We served our country like those before us. You know, it was a dangerous era. All of Vietnam was dangerous.
The carnage of war left an indelible mark on me.
We came back and built lives. As time went on, we faced new challenges and found support to handle them.
I went to the VA, talked to
30 seconds.
I started doing groups. I started doing one-on-one counseling. At MakeTheConnection.net, you can hear our stories and find tools and services available to you.
Hey,
Hey, this is Clay Travis. The Clay Travis Buck Sexton Show now airs noon to 3 weekdays on WGMD's 92.7, the talk of Delmarva.
Broadcasting from the Meineke Car Care Center studio. It's your News Talk America on 92.7 WGMD. The talk of Delmarva.
Welcome back to your News Talk America. Well, listen, the 3 hours went by like in 10 minutes, at least it did for me. But the one thing that I have promised you this week is that I would bring really giant brains, critical thinkers, people that are not fearful to voice their opinions and think through some of this stuff. We don't have to agree with everybody, but what we can say is that they're very thoughtful, and that I don't think we had one person on this week who doesn't love the country just as much as all of us does, and they want to see us all succeed. And so this has been great, especially to wind up on a Friday where we've got Memorial Day weekend in front of us, and we can think about those who did not come home. You know, too often when I was a commander of our base, our logistics base in Central Asia, we would get the call from a C-17 coming up from Afghanistan that was going to be landing, that they had American war dead on board. And in every single instance, we, my leadership team, we would go out to the runway and to the parking spot, and we would have a dignified ceremony for them. But it happened all too often. And it makes you, as an older person, which I'm long of tooth now, always reflect back and go, I wonder if that price that they paid was worth it. And what I can tell you is that American men and women, they serve the Constitution. They serve us. They don't get to pick what war they're going to go to or what deployment they're going to go to, but they're there for the one serving to the left of them and the right of them, and they pick up that rifle every day and they go do what they're supposed to, and we're thankful for that. So what I'd like to do right now before we close out the weekend is I'm going to go to the Meineke Car Care Done Right questions that some of you are a little frustrated because I was really in the moment with our guests. I'll start with Marco. Marco asks from earlier today, what is the value of the dollar pegged to? Nothing. It's fiat. After 1971, the gold-backed dollar went away, and you're actually living on the full faith and credit of the United States of America. And so what we instituted at that time was a thing called the petrodollar, we are the world reserve currency, and basically used our bicep to make sure that the world was trading in dollars back and forth. But you can tell, and you can easily see the historical trend that you're being inflated right out of your currency. Now that if you don't have the buying power that your parents had, then the outcome is predictable, and that's why Andy Schectman was being so pointed about you got to protect yourself with assets that you can touch, hold, and feel in a world that's very unstable. And I do think we're going to go to a new monetary system. I'm going to stay with Marco here for a second, because he asked a really good question about blockchain. He said, how does the blockchain solve the problem of decentralized, anonymized currency? Well, what I can tell you, Marco, is I hope whatever system we go to, it is anonymized. I get everybody's freak out moment about money laundering and that, but the percentage of money laundering versus us all spending our money every single day, it's a very minuscule percentage. Okay. And so what I would prefer is that we protect our constitutional rights and our right to privacy. And so whatever blockchain system comes out, I don't want the government knowing that I bought a wagon for my granddaughter. I just don't think they need to know that. And or if I bought a gun, they don't need to know if I bought a gun. That's my right. It's none of their business. But I think that the technology will support that. Moving on. So we have one from Wolf that was meant for Ann Vandersteel, and I'm sorry I couldn't get to that, Wolf. Isn't it time for a new alternative party to challenge the closed-loop two-party alignment? Wolf, conceptually, I am with you 1,000%. I would love to see a rival party, maybe a couple of them, stand up. but I'd also like to see two parties that exist right now have an ideological difference. In fact, all they're fighting over is our taxpayer dollars being spent in one way or another. And they all seem to unify around this thing called the military industrial complex. And how can we build $1 jets? Because if we don't, we'll all be speaking Chinese tomorrow. And I think we're all getting tired of that type of narrative. And I think what we're ready for is a rebirth of American manufacturing. I think we got time for one more. This was supposed to be for Kuhn. Would the citizen servant leader concept be best advanced by an alternative party? Also by Wolf. Wolf, yes, of course it would. But it means at the local levels, it has to start there. And I think Stephen did a great job going through the numbers. So we're going to leave it there. For better or for worse, but I think for better. We're going to be back on Monday, and I will see you with great guests and a new set of themes. And thank you for listening here to your News Talk America. Are we clear?
We're Heritage Talk Station, 92.7 WGMD Rehoboth Beach and 98.5 WUSX
clear?
Seaford. The talk of